I am divorcing my wife not because love died, but because silence grew louder than our prayers. I am divorcing my wife with hands that once held her name, like a promise written in the margins of destiny. I did not wake one morning and decide to leave. I stayed through nights where my heart learned how to bleed quietly. I stayed when words became weapons, when kindness felt borrowed, when smiles arrived late and left early. I stayed because men are taught to endure, because crowns are heavy, because love once bowed its head to us. She was not a mistake. Let me say this clearly. She was a chapter, written in honest ink, not a stain I wish erased. But even the truest chapters end not with hatred, but with exhaustion. I am divorcing my wife after counting the apologies that never came, after forgiving things that were never admitted. We learned each other's flaws too well. They stopped being lessons and became daily weather. I remember her laughter before it became careful. I remember her eyes before they learned avoidance. I remember love before it needed explanations. I am divorcing my wife because love should not feel like standing alone in a crowded home. Because marriage is not survival, it is shelter. I tried to be the man she needed, strong where she wanted softness, silent where she needed words. I failed sometimes. I admit this without defense. But I did not stop trying. She tried too, in her way. But our ways stopped meeting. Two good hearts can still wound each other when they beat out of rhythm. I am divorcing my wife, not to escape responsibility, but to end a war. Neither of us was winning. We became strangers, sharing memories, roommates of regret, partners only on paper. I looked at her one day and realized I missed her while she was still there. That is the loneliest truth a man can carry. I am divorcing my wife with respect, with restraint, with a prayer on my tongue. I will not turn our story into gossip. I will not poison the past to justify the present. She was once my future. That deserves honor. I release her without curses, without blame shouted into public air. What broke us does not need witnesses. I am divorcing my wife because sometimes love is letting go before resentment learns your name, because staying can be cruelty when hearts are quietly drowning. I wish her peace that I could not provide. I wish myself healing. I delayed too long. If she reads this someday, let her know. I loved her honestly, even when I was failing. Let her know. She mattered, even at the end. I am divorcing my wife, but I am not divorcing my humanity. I walk away with dignity intact, with lessons carved into my silence. Some loves end loudly. Ours ends like a sunset, still beautiful, still sad, still final. I am divorcing my wife after learning that love can exist and still not survive. There were mornings we woke beside each other, yet carried different suns inside our chests. I spoke in patience, she heard delay. She spoke in emotion, I heard accusation. Between what was said and what was meant, our marriage slowly learned how to disappear. I remember the early days when her name felt lighter than breath, when the future stood politely and waited for us. We promised forever, like children promise stars, not knowing how heavy time can become. I am divorcing my wife after realizing that love alone cannot translate two wounded languages. I stayed silent to keep peace. She raised her voice to be heard. Neither of us was wrong, yet both of us were bleeding. I carried my pain like a private medal. She carried hers like an unanswered question. We stopped asking, "How are you?" and started asking, "Why are you like this?" That is where marriages begin to crack. I am divorcing my wife after nights where sleep avoided us, where prayers felt distant, where even God seemed quiet, not absent, just silent, watching us learn what pride costs. I wanted understanding. She wanted reassurance. Both are love, yet neither arrived on time. I watched her change, and she watched me harden. We mistook growth for betrayal. I am divorcing my wife after realizing that staying was teaching us how to resent instead of how to heal. I miss the woman who trusted my silence. She misses the man who spoke without armor. Somewhere between responsibility and expectation, we lost softness. I do not accuse her. I accuse time, unspoken fears, and the wounds we pretended were small. I am divorcing my wife with a heart that still knows her rhythm, with memories that refuse eviction. I remember her tears that fell without sound, the way she turned away, so I would not feel guilty. I felt guilty anyway. I remember the arguments that started over nothing and ended over everything. We became experts at defending ourselves instead of protecting us. I am divorcing my wife because love should not require constant explanation. Because marriage is not a courtroom where both sides lose. I release her from my expectations. I release myself from proving strength